creepy bicycle man in the fields. This happened to me a while ago, but it still messes with my mind. I live in a quiet countryside where nothing usually happens. I'm an 18-year-old girl who can easily walk around my hometown alone without worrying. It's really safe here. There's basically no crime. So, as usual, my dog and I went for a walk one evening. It was nice outside, and we walked to a nearby field. It's very open, so I usually let my dog out of her leash there. That way it was fun for both of us. She's a nice dog and always comes when I call for her. We get to the field, feeling the relaxing weather. But I have this kind of odd feeling in my gut that I never usually have. Whatever, I think, and keep going, completely ignoring it. We roll around the fields and a nearby forest until the sun starts to set. I put my dog back on her leash and decide to leave from one of the tiny paths that go through a small forest. I take it sometimes, as it is the quickest way to my home. It's not a popular way to go, but it's quick. As I'm walking along the path, I suddenly spot a silhouette at the end of the road just before the forest starts. I think nothing and just keep walking, but after just a little while, that feeling came back and I stare at the silhouette. It's then that I notice the silhouette is staring at me without moving. I just think that maybe they were waiting for someone, because at first the silhouette looked like a child's, but as I got closer, I noticed that it wasn't a child, but a grown man who was riding what looked like a child's bike. It was a blue-green bike, and his legs were way too long for it. His whole body looked like he was forcing himself to ride it. It was a really unsettling sight. Still, my dumbass didn't want to turn around and add a couple more kilometers and waste time, and even though it was creepy looking, I still thought, maybe he's waiting for someone that comes my way. But every step I take, he follows me with an intense expression. I'm only like 20 meters away from him when he starts to do weird jumps on his bike, smiling the ugliest and the most unsettling smile I've ever seen, just staring at me with wide eyes. He kind of looks like he was expecting something and is so excited about it that he needs to jump. He looks like he's in his 50s or something, very long and thin arms, bald, and that creepy, unsettling smile. That's when my alarms went off. I glanced behind me and no one was there. It was just me, a girl with her fluffy dog. I turn around 360 and sort of jog where I came from, just in case. I glanced at him and sighed in relief when I noticed he wasn't following me or anything. I was more confident that maybe he wasn't waiting for me after all, and called myself stupid and a scaredy cat. I start to relax a bit and slow down as I'm in the middle of the fields and I still see no signs of him following me. I let my dog off her leash again and she starts to run around. We're nearly at the end of the field. There's about 1 kilometer left with a little forest part before I get back to my home. My dog spots a rabbit or deer or some interesting thing and flies towards it. I panic because she has never done that before and I yell for her. I yell plenty of times for her and finally she comes back. I'm relieved that nothing happened to her, but as I got her leash again, I noticed something from the corner of my eye. The freaking bald, long legs is biking towards me. He's not looking at the ground when he bikes, but me. Saying I was freaking out isn't enough to express my feeling in that moment. I've never seen a person look that crazy. More than crazy. What surprised me the most was that he was biking through a field, and I can tell you, it is not an easy field to bike, let alone even walk sometimes. It has muddy puddles and ponds that you need to jump over, but that psycho just biked through them. He was struggling a lot to bike there, but somehow managed to still do that. I didn't watch for another second behind me because I just started running. Despite having asthma, I ran full speed and ended up seeing black and nearly collapsed. My lungs hurt so bad that I thought I was dying, but the adrenaline kept me and my legs going. I glanced behind me and he was there, struggling to keep up through the field, still with that ugly smile and that tiny bike. After that, I just ran like crazy until I found a house and hid in their yard without even minding that I was in someone else's yard. It didn't matter to me in that moment at all. I waited a while with my breathing stuck in my throat, but he didn't come. I was planning to yell as loudly as I could if he found me, but he never did. At some point, I cooled down and my breathing slowed, and I left my hiding spot. I ran again until I reached an area which had multiple people in their yards, so I would have help if I saw him again. But I didn't. I typed 911 into my phone but couldn't bring myself to call. Mostly because I had no proof and I didn't want my parents to find out because they are overprotective, so I probably wouldn't be able to leave my house anymore. I've been paranoid about this incident and my dog was frightened too. I still think about him. I constantly expect to randomly spot him in some area and think about what he might be capable of. I can't forget his awful smile. I envision him jumping through my window and more scenarios play through my head. I feel paranoid and helpless. My dog alerted me to something at my window. When I was 17, my bedroom had a window looking out at my backyard. The backyard was fenced in, but on the other side of the fence were some woods and a retention pond. I actually never minded this and kept the blinds open so that when the sun rose in the morning, the natural light would help me wake up. One night, I was up late on my phone with my dog laying in bed next to me. At around 2 a.m., my dog jumped up and started barking at the window. At first, I thought he was just barking at his reflection and told him to stop, but then I realized he was barking at something else out there. I couldn't see outside the window because I had left the lamp on my nightstand on. All that I could clearly see in the window was a reflection of my own room. Not wanting to alert whatever might be out there that I was scared, I faked a yawn, set my phone aside, and turned off the lamp. I then laid down facing the window, and I swear I saw a set of human eyes looking right back at me. I drink a lot of water at night, so I had an empty bottle on my nightstand. I grabbed it and pretended to just realize it was empty. I turned on the lamp and acted like I was going to get water. I went to my parents' room to tell them, and my dad told me not to worry. We had these motion-activated floodlights and they hadn't turned on, so there was no way anything was out there. I went back to my room and told myself I was just seeing things. I closed the blinds and turned off the lamp and got some sleep. When I woke up in the morning, I went to take my dog out and decided to check out the pine straw bedding underneath my window. It was visibly disturbed. I did my best to ignore that and remember what my dad said about the floodlights. That worked pretty well. Until later that day, my dad tested the floodlights and found that the bulbs had burned out. A man wanted to eat my tattoo. I'm a 29-year-old woman. I've lived in a big city all my life, but at the beginning of April, I moved to a medium-sized town about an hour away from that city, along with my sister and our 4 pets. This happened after a month of living there. My sister was prepping for her final presentation for her arts major, which was going to be shown in the city, so she had to spend the whole day there to make her preparations. I was left home alone with our cats and dog, so in the early evening, I decided to go for a long walk with my 2 dogs. We walked for like an hour, but about 5 minutes away from our home. As we were headed back, I saw a man knocking on a door about a block away. I thought he looked a bit weird because he would knock on the door, look around, then knock on the door and look around again. But he didn't look dangerous, so I just kept walking since I had to pass by him to take the street that would take me to my home. When I was about 10 meters away, he looked my way and started walking towards me. He was tall and slender and was carrying what looked like a box of candy. He asked me if I had any coins to spare. I told him, "Sorry, I only have my doggy bags. Have a good one." And I was ready to keep walking when he saw one of my tattoos and stopped me. I'm not heavily tatted, but I have several on my arms and legs. And since I was wearing shorts, the ones on my legs were visible. The specific one he was looking at is of a ghost woman in traditional Japanese style. As he stopped me, he said, "That's a really cool tattoo. Would you give it to me?" I just laughed uncomfortably, thinking he was joking, but he was dead serious, just staring with unblinking eyes at my tattoo. He then continued talking. "No? So you're just gonna let the maggots eat it? What a shame. It would be better if a person ate it." He then raised his face and looked me straight in the eyes with a very flat smile that seemed to be an attempt to be friendly, but only made me feel even more uncomfortable. He then asked me for my name, and not wanting to antagonize him, I gave him a fake one, told him it was Regina. He then asked me if I lived in town, to which I also lied and said that I was from the big city and just visiting. He then told me he used to live in that city too. He lived on the streets downtown. He told me he used to rap on buses to get money, and just out of the blue started rapping about me, still looking me straight in the eye. He rapped about how I was very pretty, how amazing my tattoos were, and in his rap, he said my name was Lorena. I corrected him and said my name was Regina, not Lorena, since I had a suspicion he realized I gave him a fake name and was testing me. He just smiled and nodded. He then asked me if I'd give him my number. I told him my dogs and I were expected to be home soon. He pointed at a butcher shop a block away and told me that we could sit over there while I gave him my number and that it wouldn't take long. But I told him that I couldn't, that the one waiting for me at home was my boyfriend. Of course, I was lying again since I was home alone. His smile faded a bit and he just said, "Well, that sucks." I wished him a good evening and turned around to leave, only for him to drop to his knees and grab my leg with both of his hands. He started caressing my tattoo while whispering, "It really is a goddamn cool tattoo." My dogs are pretty friendly, and they were very calm about this whole exchange, but when he grabbed my leg, they started growling. I pulled my leg out of his hand, wished him a good evening again, and just walked away as fast as I could. I took a longer way home to make sure he didn't follow me, and once home I took a shower and excessively scrubbed my leg. I just felt so gross after all that. And luckily for me, I haven't seen him again, but for a while after that I made sure to cover my tattoos every time I went outside, just in case.